Coming up on this, do you believe it's summer already, edition of Inside Bellingham? Tim Spence has some tips for keeping Lake Whatcom, our drinking water supply, safe and healthy. And we'll talk with Jewel James, who carved a magnificent new healing pole recently placed on Whatcom Creek. And the gateway to Bellingham's downtown is getting a makeover and planning a big fireworks extravaganza this 4th of July. Brian Fenley has some tips. All this and a virtual market of ideas more right here on Inside Bellingham. Hi, and welcome to Inside Bellingham. I'm Doug Waldo. And this is Bellingham's Farmers Market, located on Railroad Avenue in downtown Bellingham. The downtown area is officially known as the Central Business District. It's the commercial center of Bellingham, as well as home to the Civic Center complex, City Hall, the County Courthouse, the main library, the Whatcom Museum, and the planned new Art and Children's Museum complex on Grand Street. Most of the original single-family homes in this area were replaced by commercial buildings long ago. The few that remain have more often than not been turned into classy business offices. Recently, we've seen a rekindled interest in downtown living. The downtown area is an area in change. It's a renaissance, really, as folks discover urban amenities and decide that downtown would be a great place not only to work and play, but also to live. Speaking of downtown amenities, Depot Market Square hosts the Saturday Bellingham Farmers Market. Now, it's a tad early for most local fresh produce, but as summer gets going, our local growers will be bringing in everything from sweet, snappy apples to the ubiquitous zucchini for our taste-tingling pleasure. The market is more than just homegrown produce, though. It's also a place for handmade items of great variety. It's fun just to walk around here on a Saturday and mingle with our neighbors, gardeners, farmers, and craftspeople. Downtown, you can find everything from great restaurants to clothing, videos, bagels, lattes, magazines, art supplies, antiques, and even culture. Now, those of us lucky enough to live here know all about downtown businesses, but what if you're a tourist, a new visitor to our fine city, and you want to know what downtown has to offer? Like, where can you take the kids? Is there a coffee shop close, or is there a public restroom nearby? Well, in addition to the visitor center over there by I-5, downtown now has its own visitor center where any question about downtown that a visitor might ask can be answered. Well, most of them anyway. So we ambled down to the new facility on Cornwall to meet the staff and find out what they do.
Because we have about 50,000 out-of-town visitors, we've heard from our membership that this was an important asset for downtown, and we wanted to have a central location to provide that information. Tourists are an important part of a vibrant downtown. They provide not only revenue to the area, but they provide interest in our cultural institutions and in our restaurants and our shopping that's important in terms of creating jobs and making downtown a better place to live, to work, and to visit.
On the web, we have a new interactive map that's available. It's a great new map where you can click on businesses. It'll show you a pop-up where the location is. It'll give you their location and their phone numbers. It's a great way to find out more about downtown Bellingham businesses and organizations. On the main page, we have an interactive map of downtown Bellingham that you can click on. The map is divided into 4 sections of downtown Bellingham, and you can click on one, and it'll list some of the businesses and organizations in downtown Bellingham. For example, if you wanted to know where the newsstand was, you could click on the newsstand. It'll pop up, it'll show you where it's located, it'll give you an address and a phone number. The visitor center is great because it's perfect for people who've lived here for a long time because they can pick up materials for visitors that are coming. And it's also great for people who are new to the city because we have a full events calendar that we put out every week, and we have postcards. We have brochures available from a variety of downtown merchants. You can find out more about their businesses and where you'd like to shop downtown. And we're open 7 days a week, so it's perfect. If you have any questions anytime, you can come in. And we're also available via email, and you can call us anytime with questions about downtown Bellingham.
If you'd like to try out that new downtown website, just go to www.downtownbellingham.com. Jewel Praying Wolf James is a lineal descendant of the immortal Chief Seattle. He's also a master carver of the Lummi Nation. He and others with the House of Tears carvers have carved many celebrated totem poles that have been displayed all over the country. One of their most beautiful is also this. It's located along Whatcom Creek, and it commemorates the lives of Wade, Stephen, and Liam, who died in the tragic pipeline explosion that occurred 8 years ago this month. It's a healing pole intended to help mend the land, the creek, and the people who suffered from this terrible event on June 10th, 1999, when over 250,000 gallons of gasoline exploded and raged down Whatcom Creek.
One thing about the art here is that if you look at the top, you'll see a memorial box, and there's a sun and a moon with raven flying in between, and that's raven in a bird form, but on the backside there's a human painted. Well, and the box is actually hollow, and there are items placed in it, not a body, but items from the families that lost their children here. And so that was part of the healing ceremony for the families that suffered the immediate loss. We as society suffered the environmental loss. They suffered a direct impact. Then if you look at the top, you'll see it looks like 2 humans, but actually it's Raven. And Raven and Salmon Woman got married, and she brought her children to the people. And the people had plenty until they began to abuse the salmon children. So Salmon Woman took her children away. So although the people realized it was too late to undo the damage, they still insisted or begged Raven to go talk to his wife and see if he can convince her to come back with her children. So that's why the Raven's in a human leadership form again. But you see his feet are more like claws, you know, and that's because he had the power to transform from a human to a bird. But he's actually a leader, and he did salmon woman to bring her children back. So we learned our lesson: don't hurt the salmon. So you see that he's got his hands up, showing respect for the salmon carved on the totem pole. And so that's what we call part 1 of the salmon story. Part 2 is Raven's brother is Bear. Bear, being the restless guy he was, he just had to go fishing. He went into the spawning habitat, or where the salmon slept. So he went upstream where nobody was around, and he touched all the children, all the salmon species, and they all died. Chum salmon, Chinook salmon, coho, pink salmon, sockeye salmon. The only one that he didn't touch because Raven got there in time to stop him was steelhead. That's why steelhead returns to the river and goes back to the ocean, returns to the river and goes back to the ocean. That is the older cycle of life. All the other ones return to the river and die because of the damage that bear did. But it's a part of the story of protect the habitat as well. So when you put part 1 and part 2 together of the stories, you have the full story of conservation of the salmon. That's how we taught through native science, song, dance, and ceremony, and symbolism, sacred knowledge. Teaches you to have a relationship with the world around you. And so we're hoping the use of totem poles and the symbols that are associated with it will just causes a reawakening of that spark inside. You know, I'm somebody and I need to understand me in order to help others. We're not going to tell you how to interpret a symbol. A symbol is something that speaks to you inside. It's inherent within you. You know, and you know, but if you pull up to a stop sign at an intersection, it means stop. Everybody knows that. Everybody stops. You know, so that's the difference between a sign and a symbol. You know, when you start defining the symbols and then you start losing some of the ancestral inherent teachings that you're born for, you know it has an important message for you. It's up to you to figure out why.
You can visit the healing pool on Whatcom Creek at the foot of Racine Street. If you travel down Holly Street lately, you're probably wondering what all the activity is about. Well, Holly Street, the gateway to downtown, is getting a facelift. The work underway will improve safety, service, and aesthetics. Now, this is not the first time this old street has been improved, but when it's all done, I think you'll agree it's the best so far.
East Holly Street was originally residential, lined with houses and served by the Garden Street and York Addition trolleys, which carried shoppers and workers to and from downtown. The Fairyland roller rink was located at the junction of the two streetcar lines. As the automobile became more popular, East Holly became part of Highway 99 and the character changed. Car-related businesses such as gas stations, drive-ins, and parking lots replaced many homes. Ever since 1889, when Holly was a wood plank road, it has been a vital gateway to Bellingham, providing easy access to the businesses that have built downtown.
We've been in this location at Holly and Cornwall since 1986. And this is our fourth location, by the way. We've seen many street improvements, these bollards and the bricks on the bulged out intersections, and every little bit helps. The street tree plantings, it just makes people feel good about where they live and want to be where they live. In the long haul, it doesn't matter if it's an individual, a family, or a business. And likewise, the city, you need to improve on your capital assets. And so I'm fully supportive of that. It's a good way of showing that you like what you do, to celebrate what you do, and we all thrive when we reinvest in our community. You know, it'll be okay. People are just in a hurry. They have lots of things to do, and they need to get there sooner than they can get there, and we all need to take a little patience.
Well, we started about a month ago, back in April, and it's going to continue all the way through summer. So we'll be inconveniencing people for the entire summer. One of the things that we did do is to try, like the Dickens, to make sure we warned everybody that we were going to make a big mess for a long time. Well, the major reason we're blocking your access is because we have to repair the roadway. Every once in a while, the roadway itself will deteriorate to the point where we need to replace the asphalt. Also, in this case, the sidewalks. But there's another reason. This is really the gateway to Holly, or the gateway to the city of Bellingham. And the city council decided that if we're going to spend the money to repair the roads and repair the sidewalks, let's make it look even better. And one of the ways we're doing that is by putting in some street trees. Another way is by improving the crosswalks with what we call street print, which is kind of a fancy crosswalk, which also has the advantage of being more visible. Well, there's a bunch of different aesthetic aspects that they're adding to the project, one of which is new sidewalks with bulb outs. Bulb outs will be wider areas in the sidewalk that'll make it easier for people to walk and safer for people to walk. At the same time, we're putting in new street trees, which are the trees you'll see in tree wells just between the sidewalk and the roadway. We're also putting in some areas, we're putting in brick. So the area which will have there'll be brick, and they'll kind of tie in the brick from downtown into the entrance, the gateway to the city of Bellingham. So you'll get the feel as you're coming into town of the brick. In other areas, we're also putting in new street lights, and we're also putting in some new stoplights that'll look a little different. Altogether, it should be a nice welcome to the city of Bellingham. The main thing is be patient. Sometimes construction takes a while, it's kind of dusty, it's kind of dirty, it's kind of disruptive. if they leave a little earlier, perhaps use alternate routes when they can, but mostly just be patient with the construction. It's something we need to do, and at the same time, while we're doing something that's very important for safety reasons, we're also taking the opportunity to make the city of Bellingham a little bit prettier. Well, on just about every project, what an engineer really hopes for is that 2 years after the project, they come through and say, what a beautiful area, what a beautiful entrance to the city of Bellingham, how convenient, how safe, and no one will remember the construction at all.
You can find out more about what goes on at Public Works by visiting the website at www.cob.org/PW. In June and early summer, it seems like we see a real increase in sightings of wildlife in our neighborhoods. Typically, we see possum, deer, raccoon, bats, squirrels, skunks, and Canada geese move into built-up areas. Sometimes these animals are looking for a place to live, and sometimes they're stressed or injured. Northwest Wildlife can work with homeowners to determine if wildlife in our neighborhoods are stressed or injured and help animals find a better place to live.
The organization was started several years ago by a group of people who had had some wildlife experience in other areas, but they saw a need in Whatcom County. And out of that, the Northwest Wildlife Rehabilitation Center grew. And last year we got this lovely land out here in Nugent's Corner, and now we're able to actually keep the animals and rehabilitate them here and follow the cases all the way through to release them, back into Whatcom County where they came from. These guys came in when they were pretty young, and their nest had blown out of a tree. So this is a young barred owl, and it was found on the ground in Cornwall Park in Bellingham. Oh, here's one with its eyes just starting to open. We get a lot of raccoon calls. We get a lot of possum calls, gray squirrels. Right now we're having a lot of baby birds out of their nests, songbirds of all types. And we do get a whole lot of phone calls about nuisance animals. Animals that are in people's houses, eating their dog and cat food on the back porch, raiding their garbage cans. But we are not actually licensed to remove healthy animals. We're only licensed to remove injured or orphaned animals, which we then just try and raise if they're babies, or fix up if they're hurt or sick, and release them back into the wild. If it's just something that seems pretty vigorous and healthy, rooting around in the crawl space under the house, well, that's not an injury, that's just a nuisance issue. The best way to get those guys to leave is to take away their food sources. Usually somebody's feeding a dog or a cat outside, and that's a very easy food source. Garbage cans that aren't secure, that's another easy food source. So taking care of those is the main way. Another important thing is to secure the space. However they got into your crawl space or your attic, find that spot and close it up, board it up, screen it off, whatever you can do to keep them from getting in again. We don't usually see wild animals just sort of laying in our backyards or near the roads. If they're clearly just laying there, not moving a whole bunch, obviously in distress, go ahead and give us a call. If you see baby animals, that's a little bit different because there are some species in which it's perfectly normal to see a baby alone. Fawns are one. Oh, here's one. Actually, it's very common for the moms to leave the fawns bedded down in tall grass. She'll go browse all day and come back to them later. And it's really when somebody picks up the fawn thinking it's orphaned, takes it away, and mom comes back later and her baby's gone. That happens every year, and it's a real tragedy. So if you ever see any animal that you think is in need, go ahead and call, and we can talk to you about it and assess the individual situation.
You can find out more by phoning the folks at Northwest Wildlife, 966-8845. The city puts out a really great publication 4 times each year. It's called the Leisure Guide. It looks like this, and it's available online. So if you're trying to figure out what to do this summer, check out the Leisure Guide. It has information about all kinds of events, from kayak lessons to yoga classes to kids' activities and community sports and cultural events. You can also register online for many of these activities and events. Here's just a taste. Find the most current leisure guide at www.cob.org/parks and click on Leisure Guide. A key ingredient in keeping our water supply safe and healthy is reducing what flows into it. One of the biggest sources of pollution in the Lake Whatcom Reservoir is, can you guess it? Cars. Kim Spen says that living lighter in the watershed means taking a second look at alternative transportation.
Hi, Tina. Oh, hi, Kim. How are you? I'm doing good. How are you? Good. How often do you ride the bus? Well, I take the bus 2 or 3 times a week. It's convenient. The schedule matches my work schedule. Drops me off close to where I work. So it's a really easy way to go. I've just been riding for a few months, and although it took me a little bit to figure out, how to get in the habit of it and what to take and when to leave, I think it's real convenient too. How many people in your office take the bus? I'm not sure how many people do. There's a number of people that ride their bikes, but all of us really believe in doing our part and reducing trips, especially in the Lake Whatcom watershed. Right. My office too. There's a handful of people that ride their bike, take the bus. It's good to have options. I've met a lot of people on the bus that work up at Western Washington University, and even though they have to transfer, they think it's a real value to be able to do this. So how often are you able to take the bus? Well, sometimes only once a week, depending on what I have to do, but I try to shoot for 3 times a week. And usually I can combine my errands and other trips, so 3 times is pretty doable. You're doing the right thing. You're doing your part. I feel like I am, and I think I can even improve that with a little better planning ahead. It's not always convenient for me or maybe other people, but it's a small effort for, I think, a big payoff. I think there's less pollution that enters the lake and other streams and things, so it's really not, and I'm sure, all that inconvenient. Even for me, the bus comes often enough. It doesn't take very long to get to work. I don't have to park. And I can participate in the Smart Trips program. I'm just doing that, and I want a gift certificate already. So, there's some incentives, too. That's great. You can get discounts around town. You get a free ride home. You can win some cash. Cool program. Wow. I didn't know all those benefits. There are so many cars going in and outside the Lake Whatcom watershed. I wanted to just see one less car. Cars drip oil and antifreeze and heavy metals and all that icky stuff, and it goes right on the road and washes into the lake every time it rains. That's our drinking water source. Exactly. They say that cars really are the culprit for so many of our environmental problems. You're so right. It's important to keep your car maintained. A little bit of oil can spread over a wide area. One thing that I do, about once a month or so, I put a piece of cardboard under my engine, and in the morning I check it, and if there's oil on it, I know I have a leak and I better get it fixed. That is so simple. I thought you had to take it in and have the mechanic, work on it for hours. Wow. To keep track of your car. Right. Another reason I like taking the bus is because I drive my kids so much that it's a real treat for me to just sit back and let someone else do the driving. I find it relaxing. I like to read the paper, just kick back before I have to go to work. Yeah. Do the nails, Yeah. Yeah, it's great. It's so convenient, and it doesn't take long. And I get a little walk-in afterward, too. You know, I counted up and I've ridden the bus like 10 times already this month.
That's great. Between riding my bike and taking the bus, I'm really filling in my calendar on smart trips. Do you do that?
Yeah, just in the little trip diary. Yeah, it's fun. It makes you feel good, you know.
See your points add up.
Right. You know, you're saving that much gas and pollution, too.
Yeah, it does tell you that how much gas you save. And how much
Oh, it does?
you save. Yeah, down at the bottom.
I need to figure that out. Oh, I need to get it. It's great seeing you.
You too.
See you next time on the bus.
Right.
You can find out more about Lake Whatcom on the city's website at www.cob.org. In late June, it seems like fireworks stands start popping up everywhere, and we all begin planning for 4th of July festivities. Sometimes fireworks are part of our plans, but did you know that fireworks are illegal in Bellingham most of the year? Brian Flanley has some tips.
When you think about the 4th of July, you think about fireworks. The Bellingham Fire Department encourages you to go down to the bay and watch the professionals at work. But if you choose to celebrate at home, please keep in mind the city regulations. Consumer fireworks, such as sparklers, ground spinners, and fountains, can only be used on 4th of July between 9 a.m. and midnight and on New Year's Eve. Discharging fireworks at any other time is against the law. We respect the right of the Lummi and Nooksack nations to set their own standards inside their own borders. However, consumers need to be aware that many devices, such as firecrackers, bottle rockets, and cherry bombs, become illegal once they leave tribal lands. All fireworks have the potential to be hazardous. In Washington State, in the year 2005, there were more than 800 fireworks-related emergencies, resulting in 223 injuries and more than $1 million in property loss. And for us, the injuries that hurt the most are those that involve children. If you choose to use fireworks at home, please follow the safety tips on our website. So this year, celebrate, but celebrate safely.
Remember, only on the 4th of July from 9 a.m. to midnight and New Year's Eve. We hope you've enjoyed our show and found it informative. Our goal is to keep you up to date about what's happening in Bellingham, one of the greatest cities in the nation to live, work, and play. If you have feedback or ideas, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach us through our website or directly via email. From all of us at BTV10, we are looking forward to sharing with you this beautiful community this coming summer, and we'll be looking for you at some of the great events listed in the Leisure Guide. I'm Doug Waldo. Thanks for watching.